Hello, sinners.
Welcome back, sinners. I've been gone for a while.
Yes, all right. So I am Teresa Wallace. Welcome back, Megan.
Thank you. I'm Megan Helverson. And I'm
Right,
excited
it's been a while.
Yeah, I'm excited to be back.
Fabulous. All right, what are we talking about today, Megan?
Today we're going to talk about various practical tools that we can use to not only build family relationships and connections, gain parent-family voice, consider ideas to support your student during breaks, and how to really increase that community involvement and partnership.
So stronger school-home connections.
Yes.
How to do that, like
Yes.
practical and kind of big picture.
Yeah.
Some of both. Awesome. All right, where do we start?
So I think it's important to understand that there's lots of family needs, right? And so when we think about working with families, sometimes I often hear like, oh, they don't have the time or they're not able to attend meetings in person. And when I think about that, I think about how are we connecting? How are we getting that family voice in regards to what works best for them? Is it a meeting face-to-face? Is it a phone call? Is it an email?
I also want to immediately push back and say, do we know that or are we making assumptions?
Exactly.
Right? Like if they've stated that those things are barriers, 100% honor that, find other inroads.
Yep.
But if they haven't and we're making assumptions there, then what's our next step? And are we challenging that in ourselves?
Right. And so I think that opens up, we have to have communication. And so setting up a time when our students come to us, introducing who we are, how we, want to support their student, how we want to collaborate. There's so much research out there that states that school-home connection really increases and enhances that student success. And so how can we build from that?
Making that important across all areas. Yes, academically. Yes, reading, literacy. It's come out in all of those spaces in research at this point with those connection points at home for generalization, but it's really important for our students with disabilities for advocacy and communication and all of those other areas.
Yep.
Just as much, if not more, for those carryover of skills. So what are some of those other areas for supporting students in like common gaps that we see?
Yeah, so sometimes we see that summer slide or the weekend slide even.
Or
or
like
the
winter breaks.
winter break slide, right? I even think about my own children, and they don't wake up at the same time. They wake up late, and the routine is off, and the structure is different. There's a lot of exciting events and family things that may occur. And so when thinking about that, I want to think about how can we set students up for success? What are some of those easy things that we can support families with to put into place that not only support the student, but also support that transition back to school?
Okay, I want to back up.
Okay.
So when we're talking about student needs, you're also, as whatever role you're in schools, you're building relationships with the family, you're building relationship with the student. You are gathering data on what their strengths are, what their needs are, what their interests are, right? So capturing all of that data, capturing all of those components means that's going to inform what you're looking for in community interest outings or community interest places to go or those other like all the things that you're talking about, right? So when I'm thinking about those for your caseload of students, organizing them into those types of things that those families might be interested in seeking out for their student to try or participate in. Like that's what you're talking about?
Yeah, as well as having that conversation with families and what are their barriers? What are difficulties at home? How can we collaborate? Are there things that we can team on to really support not only them, but that student in a smoother transition or really structuring that time to support them?
So say more. Like, are you talking about data over those breaks? Like, what does that look like? Like what we look at for ESY qualification? Like, what are you speaking to?
I think data, when we think about data, we can have that informal or that formalized data, right? And so thinking about first valuing that family voice. Hey, how is it going? Are there things that you need? Are there things that we can team on together? And we have such intuitive staff. So if I know that on Monday my student comes in and it's kind of like me, right? Sometimes they're disheveled. They forget the lunch bag at home. You just know that they are not in that green zone ready to learn because there was a longer break and the routine was off. The structure wasn't there. Executive functioning is at an all-time.
They need some additional support.
Yes.
To be successful.
Right. And so I think, again, our teachers are super intuitive. So some of that informal collection of data, seeking family voice, what's working well, what is a struggle? And then how do we bridge that gap? So really valuing that voice from the student as well as the family is going to help you get that information.
I think about some of the things that families would say in IEP meetings that are a part of more of that casual connection time with them that would be really valuable to listen to and pay attention to around like what students like to do at home or what might be a challenge. Because even things around meals or snack prep or like those types of skills might be really interesting to explore in these times too. And I think about what I did during my summers growing up, like book it challenges or things like that you could very easily structure that might not increase costs for families or have other barriers that might be free through libraries or through ebooks now that are more accessible or things like that could be structured for families on that type of entry point.
Yep.
So I was thinking about those. What other examples could you think of for like summer in particular, like those longer breaks? And we do have schools, one of our own included, that have more of that stretch calendar or a 12-month calendar that have more of the 3-week break structure or something like that now that there are going to be longer gaps of time that might not align to like a 3-month gap, but still parents need things to have students doing.
Right.
And they might not know how to ask or might not feel comfortable asking. And if you're looking for opportunities to be sharing resources more consistently with your families, those would be better opportunities to do that.
Yeah, and like you said, families might not know what to really ask for. They might not know, like, hey, I have these resources.
Or my student with their needs might be successful with this resource or opportunity.
Yeah. And so I think when you're thinking about other ideas, you hit the nail right on the head. We want to identify what are those students' interests. What are things that the family does together? There are so many accessible parks that are free right now.
So many that now have like the communication boards that are permanently available in those parks or accessible parks.
That are fenced in or the materials are modified to support students. When I think about the museums, there's sensory-friendly nights, sensory-friendly movies, sensory-friendly jumping activities. You could think about your library and tapping into them. What kind of free summer resources do they have?
Or cultural centers and what resources they might have that also might be disability accessible from their community entry points.
Right. And now I think if students are interested in more gross motor activities like baseball, gymnastics, hockey, adaptive hockey, there's so many different recreation activities that now students can engage in that are really set up to support them where they're at. One caveat, some of these get a little bit more expensive, but there's tons of free things out there. And take a look at the grants. So if that's the financial piece is a barrier, often there's a lot of grants that could be had to decrease that burden that families may be experiencing.
When you're talking about grants, what that makes me think of in my vocabulary is community partnerships or like social workers or other people in schools that might help you or might be more knowledgeable of those available funding sources. Are there other things that I'm not thinking of?
Yeah, so yes, and call the place themselves. So for example, adapted baseball, right? Are there opportunities for families to access this resource that maybe don't have that financial capacity to pay? There are a ton of those. I personally put together a list of resources for our district and send them out to member districts. There are tons of grants that are already embedded within those programs, but they tend to go early. So be on top of it. Start looking, a few months before it hits and see what kind of opportunities are out there to support your student.
I think of the partners that we work with and that most districts work with on an ongoing basis, and reaching out to them to see, even on their website, like what their plans are for the summer. They tend to have those by February-ish,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
They're posted, they're available.
Yep.
So as you're curating those things on an ongoing basis, if you have a newsletter, if you have whatever else, and if your district has a community ed director, what are those things that you could have as an ongoing available resource for families that you're connecting them to, so that it's potentially not as much of a laborious lift all the time? And who could you partner with as a team to do this, so that it maybe isn't just for your kids, but is a team effort?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so speaking of that, so we've talked through kind of different entry points for that. I do also love like theater and arts programs.
Yes.
There's several different versions of that in the Twin Cities alone that are excellent partners for those things, and so many different skill entry points for students with all different abilities, and great inclusion activities and all sorts of different pieces. So don't forget the arts in addition to sports and reading and structure.
Yeah, Children's Theater offers a ton of opportunities in Minnesota, but I would assume that would be similar in other states.
Yeah. So tools. So when you're thinking about things that we could hand off to families to set them up to be successful, and things that I think about with what we're teaching students that would be transferable and generalized, what are you thinking about?
When I think about tools, I think about what are the areas of need first, and you're going to get that via voice, but whether it be student, family, or your own informal data that you're connecting. And identify what are those tools that would be supportive. So for an example, a student that really thrives off of a schedule or a routine, maybe is not sure when they're going to come back to school and they're repetitively asking that. Maybe we put together a calendar, right? And on that calendar, we're going to note where we're going to go on certain days, when school will start. And then think of the layers, right? So maybe we have that calendar that's that overarching monthly thing, but then we have an individual schedule for that student, and it can be quick and easy. Wake up, you're doing an activity or a choice, you're taking a shower, doing your hygiene activities. And when we have those supports set up, sometimes it's laborious at first, but really what we're teaching that student to do is really be independent with those tasks. So it's not the parent or the caregiver that's directing. We're giving students skills and tools to really support their independence. One thing that I highly suggest is gain their collaboration when you're making these resources. So have the students sit down. What are some of your interests? Tell me what your morning routine looks like, because we want to get them involved in that process, because eventually we want them to take that over. To have those tools to understand, like, hey, I need a structured routine. This helps me. This is how I can do it. I use my calendar every day. I have all my other calendars that I use for sports and activities, right? And it's like, those are common tools that support us. How do we teach students to do that independently? Because it's a life skill.
Well, and they can do that a lot by maybe late elementary school. A lot of kids and families could partner together as a part of their morning routine to build the schedule for the day if you gave them the tools to do that.
Yeah.
And that way it's a skill that you are teaching and reinforcing as a part of their relationship and skill for the times that they're off or their weekends or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, all right, what information do they need to gather so that they are setting up their day, which also is a lifelong skill. Into whatever system they're using at that point in time. So it's worth the effort is really where my ultimate statement here, because no matter the skill set of the human that you are partnering with on this, it is always worth the effort, because the number of systems and points of entry, whether it's medical or work or personal, the number of systems, you have to integrate them into my plan for the day, and where does that exist? And for our families, they're so complex to then potentially put into a workable system for a child with a disability on any level, to then have it be meaningful to that child to engage with at whatever level of independence they're able to then understand and utilize. So it's meaningful and the work is important. So that's my soapbox about that.
Well, and I think about too these activities going back to the just community involvement and being involved in your community is so important. We can work on socialization, we can work on our communication skills, social skills. We're building a community with peers potentially and with other families that may be experiencing similar things. And so that activeness is such an important part of helping students gain so many skills.
Connect to their community, even like thinking about building their schedule and what opportunities for communication about their day that's giving the family to talk about at the end of their day and as a part of the routine that sometimes becomes a gap area between school and home that this would give an opportunity to fill. So there's just a lot of opportunity that comes out of doing this collaborative work. And I think about how you can make this sustainable as a school staff to share this with families. Like, do you have an ongoing newsletter that you can put a weekly resource into that you found that's meaningful for families? I'll explore that.
Yeah. I love how you brought that up for those in Minnesota, the autism portal, right? Through the Department of Ed. And they have a resource on there that updates that calendar. So you're always seeing various events and activities, not just specific to autism, but really supporting neurodiversity. And so thinking about what are those resources out there that are continually updating. So then it's not you're having to go dig each month or each week, right? We're accessing resources that are continually updating for us, and we're providing those resources to the family.
Awesome. No, that's great. That's a centralized place. We love that.
Yeah.
All right. Any other tools or, I love a good timer. Any other time management things that you wanted to share as good, quick reminders for people?
I think about how can we use digital tools, so our calendar, voice to text. Many people have iPads or phones. How are we teaching?
Matching tools with skillability and what you always have on you at that point in time.
100%. And how to use it appropriately. I have
quotes.
Air quotes. Yeah.
Right. Define appropriately.
Exactly.
What do you mean?
So I think appropriately means using it as the way it's intended.
Within the context that you are.
100%, yeah. Another one, social narratives, for example. If I have a student or my own personal child who's really nervous about starting a community activity, such as a skate park, right? There's a skate park in Minneapolis that students can go to. And they have a social narrative that's already created for students. I
love that.
So you jump on the website, you can print it out, you can read it, you can see what it looks like, you can view the expectations. There's so many.
I would need those.
Yeah, I as well, right?
I don't know what to do here.
Yeah. But many of our local community places, resources are starting to incorporate some of those tools because really they work for all of us.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
All right. So really what I'm hearing is two things. Have a system and organize within your system to communicate these things with families.
Yeah.
And ultimately build strong relationships, both with students and with families.
100%.
I feel like that's a mic drop moment, but I won't drop this microphone because I will break it.
Yeah.
Building relationships is everything with our families and our students.
Yeah.
Really can't do a whole lot without it.
And think about, how can we engage those families, right? Maybe it's a phone call, maybe it's a meeting, maybe you're having a showcase of what you're doing in the classroom and just welcoming people in. But it's really important to identify how do they want that communication to take place? How can we partner as a team? Because again, that partnership is so important. And how can we honor our families? And
there's so many different methods for that now that if you give families an option to opt into a method that works for them, can go a long way.
And I think about, we all hate that phone call that if something went wrong, right? And so this is another way to flip that lens and to reach out, collaborate, and really establish that positive relationship with our students and our families right off the bat. We are in a team, and that's how students are going to be most successful.
And we want to be able to have a productive working relationship for when things are challenging, and not like the worst scenarios of challenging, but like the ongoing challenge, because school is supposed to be working within that zone of proximal development of hard. So that should be an ongoing relationship of challenge. And if it's only when you're celebrating things that you're reaching out, or when it's hard, you're living in the extremes with the family instead of in all spaces with the family, and it's more regular and expected.
It opens up just the greatest opportunity for those great relationships. Yep. I wanted to highlight, when we think about families, we want to think about them as partners and not just participants, right? We want to bring
we're not
them,
the expert.
They're the expert of their student. And we want to bring them along with us, right? And so having that mindset when you set up these appointments, when you set up this communication, is really important to value who they are as parents, as people, right? And as somebody that really cares about their student.
Well, and having their own goals related to their child too, not just the academic ones or whatever ones you think might be the most important at the moment, which certainly have value, but might need to have a bit of a shift once you've talked to those families about what their goals are and collaborate on identifying a shared goal and partnering on what that work looks like.
Yeah, because we as educators come in with our own bias, right? And if we don't ask those questions, we're operating on that one side of the fence. And so we need to break that down, we need to collaborate, and we need to really foster that communication.
Yeah, I think about like, how are we gaining feedback from families, globally speaking, but also like, is this working for you? Right? Are we putting them in the hot seat when they were asking them for feedback? Like, are you openly asking for feedback in a way that you want it authentically?
Right.
Are you open to them saying no? Right? Like, what happens when they do say no? Right? Like, what does that actually look like? And how is that happening or not happening in an anonymous way for family? Like, just, do you even know the answer to that question? And I think in a lot of ways, some people might not know. And I think if you're reflective about your practice and your relationship with families, it probably looks a little bit different with each family as to what that feedback cycle looks like. And there's probably a lot of assumptions on both sides.
100%.
And that doesn't mean it can't change. Right? So what can it look like, and how can you shift that?
Yeah. And if it's a no for right now, it's not a no forever. And so having that conversation of, I totally understand, I'm hearing what you're saying. Would it be okay if I reach out next month or in 2 months?
Or like, I think I hear you. Let me reframe that.
Yes.
And have you confirm that what I think I'm hearing from you is this.
Yeah.
So that you're using those practices that we use with students to confirm that with them, so that you're not like leaving something on a different point when you have those connection opportunities, and you are continuing to build trust in shared understanding, especially when those are such valuable opportunities that you don't want to lose. Yeah, so many opportunities to partner with families really effectively and build those relationships.
100%.
All right. We got to wrap it up.
I hear you.
Put a pretty little bow on it.
Yep.
All right. So what I am thinking about are all of the opportunities that we have in education to partner with families and to build relationships and to offer them resources, right? So if I am in education in a classroom and I have so many opportunities that I want to share based on the knowledge and the resources that I know exist, what I would say and put out there is, what is one way that I can put those forward for the families that I can impact?
Yeah.
And think about that and do it.
Yeah, because when we think about it together, our connections are going to be stronger and more impactful. So we got to maintain that so every student can thrive.
All right.
See you later, sinners.